Well, my name is Butch Hart, and I'm originally from Gilmore City, Iowa, and I now live in Round Rock, Texas with my family. We've lived here since the early 80s, and I am a Vice President of Supply Chain Management for Lockheed Martin Corporation. I'm a proud father, grandfather, and I'm a big gardener. I'm very involved in sports. I'm a part-time sports writer for the Austin American-Statesman newspaper and have been since the early 80s. I cover a lot of high school sports. I am very much active in terms of walking and doing a lot of those kinds of things. I played college. I was a college athlete. I continued to get heavier, and I just kind of continued to grow and continued to get bigger. And then my daughter started me on this path by saying, "Dad, I don't know any 500-pound, 60-year-old men." And that was really kind of a wake-up call. Really had not a lot of serious health issues previously, but that was really a wake-up call that I had to make some significant changes in my life. When my sons were younger, I coached them in sports and did things. And by the time my daughter came along, who's 28 years old now, I was coaching her, but I no longer could do a lot of the drills and a lot of the types of thing. And so I kind of dismissed that as being, well, there's younger fathers that could do that. And I realized it wasn't that it was younger fathers. It was things like not being able to tie your shoes, but not realizing that, or having to make a big effort, or to I travel a great deal at work, and to fly on an airplane, you always had to look for an aisle seat. Hopefully nobody was next to you, flip up the arm, get a seatbelt extension. All of those kinds of subtle things that you don't necessarily realize. So at family, we had to go buy dining room sets, but we had a fat chair, steel reinforced chair that sat at the end that I sat in. You couldn't sit, when you visited people, you couldn't sit in public chairs. I actually sat in a plastic chair in a outside bar in Baltimore and totally destroyed the chair. It totally just, and in looking back, that chair probably could support 250 pounds and I was 450 pounds. That chair never had a chance. So, you know. It was a couple of things on getting involved and making the decision on gastric bypass. I cheated a little bit because I had a younger brother who had gotten to be almost 400 pounds and had had this surgery several years before in California. So I started looking around and started realizing I had lost a little bit of weight, but I needed to make that step. I did internet research on bypass, sleeve, lap band, and then I started talking to a couple other doctors. Dr. Ganta's name came up a couple times as being a guy who was highly regarded in the area of bariatric surgery, had a good reputation, and so I took the free seminar here at the hospital with him. He is a very likable fellow. He is non-judgmental, very likable man, and since I'd already heard professionally that he was a good doctor, I thought, well, let's go ahead and start proceeding it. Absolutely the right decision of a lifetime. It's that he never was judgmental, and he never made me feel bad about being so fat. I think it's critical that you have people on staff that have had the procedure, because as you come into an office place, it is a bit intimidating to see a lot of skinny people that are young that have never wrestled with a weight problem. You can see it in the eyes of people that have had the procedure. They're happier and they are excited for you that you're going down this step. Having that reinforcement is absolutely critical, because you really need that reinforcement early. Even when you've made the decision to have it done, you're haunted with some, well, maybe I could just do better on diet, or maybe you've given up and you're just going to be fat. When you go into an office and the people have already had the procedure and you see the effect, you see the after, and they're not preachy to you, they're supportive of you. I think having people on staff that have had the procedure is a huge asset. It's a little reinforcements every day, and candidly, there is nothing better than running into somebody that you haven't seen in 4 or 5 years. And when you're an older person, you have that happen, a former colleague or somebody who you haven't seen for 5 years, and frequently they don't recognize you. I waved at a fellow who was a close friend who had went to work for a company back east. I saw him at the Dallas airport. I waved at him, and he kind of waved that wave that's like, you're actually waving at me. 20 minutes later, he walked over and he said, "Excuse me, you're Butch Hart." I said, "Well, sure I am, Jim." And he's like, and he gives me a big hug. He goes, "I did not recognize you." He goes, "I wasn't even sure you were waving at me." He goes, "You were this strange guy." He goes, and then I stared at you as you were working on your laptop. He goes, and I realized, like, oh my God. He goes, so I had to come over. He goes, I made the plunge. It's like, I thought you were Butch, but I wasn't exactly sure. The reward to you personally for those kinds of things, people are happy for you, but the It's like you're not the same person, you're a better person. It's kind of fun. I think the key thing is you need to find a doctor that you connect with. That's where Dr. Ganta, in terms of losing weight and being prepared to go through this, you need to mentally buy into what's going to be done. You need to talk to people like myself, to other people here. It's not easy, it's doable, it's absolutely worth it. The horrible diet that you have to go on to and that Dr. Ganta wants you to lose 10% of your body weight before he'll allow you, that's really a training ground that you need to pay attention to. You need to mentally commit to doing that. Because if you commit to doing that, once you have the procedure, you're going to have these wonderful results. If you don't commit to doing that, then the procedure is not worth it. So you have to mentally commit to, and generally it's really not hard for anybody that's actually tried a lot of diets. It's not hard to mentally commit to doing this. But when somebody kind of half arms it to say, well, I'm going to try this, as opposed to, not the right attitude. You want to be in for the dime, in for the dollar. You want to be all the way. It's the biggest rush in the world. It is absolutely the biggest rush in the world. I went and I had bought a nice scale that would weigh me up to like 500 pounds. I weigh every single day. I keep an eye on that every single day, and I chart. I've got spreadsheets and charts on my weight. It is unbelievable to look at a chart that takes you from 450 to 375. As I chart it by the day, by the month, by the week, is that line is just down, and now I'm to the point where I don't want to be any less, but I weigh every day because I want to make sure, candidly, that I don't lose any more weight. I'm at 225 now. That's below what I thought I would ever get to. My target at all this was to get to 250, and I blew through that, and I got to 225. Now I need to make sure that I eat enough and keep that weight right there. So you continue. It is the most rewarding rush in the world to step on that scale and to be down. It's like, oh my, is this really me? It's incredible.